everyone, welcome to a Disventure Camp ranking for Season 2. I'm going to be ranking all the episodes based on how much I like them. As you can see here, the list only goes up to 8 out of 10, because I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, I don't think any episode is better than 8 out of 10 on this list. Now, I'm going to be completely candid with you all again. I do help proofread Season 1 of Disventure Camp. Now, I'm going to say this with no bias here. I really do think that some of the episodes are really, really good. I would say some of them are 9 or even 10 out of 10. You guys have already seen episodes 3, 4, and 5 of Season 1, and I think that some future episodes are even better, which is insane because those episodes are already really good. Now, that being said, it has been about 5 months since Season 2 aired, and I do think that it's now time to really discuss it. Now that it's been like half a year, we can all digest and look back in hindsight how the season really played out, and yeah, this is what this tier list aims to be. So without further ado, why don't we begin? Now, episode 1, I think, is a very, very solid episode. I think it would be very hard for any show to have a bad episode 1, because it's really just, setting up the characters, you get to meet them for the first time and all that. There are, like, a few technical difficulties with the microphones, I feel, not being the greatest, and the lip syncing not, at least for the English crowd, it doesn't, like, sync with their lips. But with that in mind, if you can ignore that, which I hope most people do, and you look past it, it's a really, really solid episode. I don't think there's anything wrong, and yeah, I don't think episode 1s can have anything wrong. I think that when you look at the philosophy of episode 1s, that's really how the creators want the season to play out. I don't really know where to put it. I don't really have any gripes with it. I feel like, yeah, some characters get more screen time than others, but those are obviously the big names of the season. You get your Yules and your Hunters, they get a decent amount of screen time. Strangely enough, what I find weird whenever I look back on this, and I've noticed this for like half a year now, is that Rosa gets a lot of screen time in episode 1, which makes sense because she is a big character in the season. It's just so weird that up until from episode 2 to episode 7, she gets a very low amount of screen time, very supplementary. We don't really learn too much about her. It's just just a reminder that she exists. And then in episodes 8, 10, and the finale, she's just super important. So yeah, episode 1 does plant the seeds for that. I just wish that, and you're gonna hear me say this a lot, but I wish that there was more getting to know the characters, more character-driven content. Because I feel like, we get a lot of confessionals, but we don't learn a lot about some of these people. Like, Aiden gets a crap load of confessionals, but at the end of the season, we don't know too much about him. Same with Hunter. Same with James to a lesser extent. It's there's just a lot of room for, getting to really bond, the viewers getting to bond with these characters. I feel like we don't really get that. Episode 1, on the other hand, is a great start. I think that you can't really go wrong with this episode. I'm gonna put it I'm gonna put it 7 out of 10. I think that I don't really have any major gripes. I do think that the one, and this isn't a major gripe, but the one issue I have is that the Oliver subplot is a bit it's kind of convenient. I've seen so many fan fictions where you have let's say Sean, he's about to cross the finish line, but oh no, in the distance he sees a bush that looks like a zombie and he freaks out and now he doesn't want to cross the finish line. And that's kind of what it plays out as, is that Oliver kind of gets triggered by nothing really. Not that he doesn't have anxiety or PTSD or whatever. What I'm saying is that it just kind of comes out of nowhere. I think that it would have made more sense if he looks at Crystal, right, the host, Crystal McLean, sees I don't know, a silhouette of Chris, or maybe his mind tricks him into thinking that it is Chris, and that's what caused the freak out. Because in the current script, it just kind of looks like he just gets triggered because they need to have him be eliminated, right? He gets triggered out of nowhere, instead of it being through some other means. That's really my one problem, and it's not enough to lower the ranking. I do think that episode 1, even if that scene was a little better, it still would have been a 7 out of 10. It's a really good opening, and I don't really have problems with it. Next up, we have episode 2, and episode 2, I think, is already not a great sign for the rest of the season, and here's why. I think that any episode 2 of this kind of show always needs to be this big bonding moment for the characters, where some characters get to really meet others, you get to see why they're friends or why they're enemies, maybe some alliances are forming, maybe some relationships are already forming, and I feel like episode 2 doesn't do the greatest job with that. And I think the best way to describe it is through the scene where Hunter and Allie really get to bond. Now you may be wondering, what scene? Because there was no scene. That we see Hunter talk to Allie about wanting to play a card game to get to know each other, some ice-breaking questions where we can really see their motivations, why they're here, what they think of each other, maybe bonding over liking same pop culture. But no, that scene doesn't exist. And yeah, I mean, episode 2 is always going to be a setup episode. You can note in DC1, episode 2 is, I would say, a pretty solid setup episode. Here, I feel like the job could have been a lot better. There's just so much that is, so much people standing next to each other and talking about general things, but it's not the greatest, I feel. Now, yeah, Hunter and Ellie, and to a lesser extent Tess, even though she falls asleep really early on, is not the greatest, but we do get moments with characters such as Connor and Rhea and Yul and Kai and Maggie that are pretty darn solid. That's on the other team. I don't even remember what team that is. No, that's the same team. Sorry, other than Maggie, that's the same team. It's kind of interesting how I feel that the orange team, they don't really do too much. We get Rosa, Lake, and Maggie. They're just kind of chilling. not doing too much. They're just kind of chilling. James and Aiden are okay in this episode for the challenge. There's not too much there, and we get to see how strong of a player Carol is. I don't really think there's anything wrong with that. My problems only really start during the elimination, where James just unambiguously pulls a really bad move. He's like, "Hey, let's work with Carol," and Aiden's like, "Yeah, it's a good idea." Then he goes to the girls, the 3 girls, and he's like, "Hey, blah 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 blah, get Carol out of the game." And now him and Aiden are outnumbered. No matter how you slice it, that's just a really bad move. I think the better move would be to work with Carol, at the very least, maybe cause a 3-3 tie, get the other girls to vote for Carol, and then James and Aiden and Carol vote one of the girls, cause a tie. I don't know, it just seems like an unambiguously awful move on James' part, and I don't like how the episode doesn't really frame it. It doesn't frame it as a smart move, but it also doesn't frame it as a dumb move. It doesn't really have any stance on how bad the move is, and yeah, Aiden is rightfully annoyed, but it's not even really brought up too much, other than in a scene in episode 7, where they talk about Carol's elimination. I remember that scene was so weird in episode 7, where Aiden talks about, Aiden and Lake are like, "Hey, James got Carol eliminated." And it's like, was that something that you cared about? I don't think you mentioned that after episode 2. You kind of didn't care about that. But yeah, I mean, episode 2 is okay. I'm going to put it in a 5 out of 10. I think for a setup episode, it does a decent job. Could be better. I get it. Hunter and Allie were always meant to emulate Trent and Gwen to a lesser extent, but in the sleeping episode in Total Drama Island, we see them look at the stars and bond over music or whatever. We don't really get that for these two. I feel like you're kind of missing steps here. We have to see why these characters like each other. What I will say about Jake and Tom, or Ashley and Will, or Ellie and Gabby, we see why they like each other. I feel like that's a very basic component when writing relationships in these kinds of shows. And yeah, sadly, episode 2 does not fulfill that as much as I would like it to. Episode 3, on the other hand, is it's a very complicated episode. I've seen a lot of people say they love it, and a lot of people say they hate it. I think that the challenge is very sus. It's not a great challenge to have in this kind of show, or any kind of show for that matter. I guess it's fine if the characters are all the same age, but the characters are not the same age here, and it just comes across as very exploitative, and we need it for views and all that stuff. But I mean, at the end of the day, if you can ignore the challenge, and because unlike episodes 4 and 5, I wouldn't say the challenge has a major hold on the episode. I think that there are good things regardless of the challenge. If you can ignore that, I do think that this is a pretty good conclusion. And I know it's weird to call episode 3 conclusion, but for Kai and Connor's arcs, we lose these 2 pre-merge characters who really were designed to only be pre-merge characters. And I do think it's a good send-off for Kai. He was never meant to last that long anyway. You can kind of tell. There's some characters where you can kind of tell they're not meant to last. I think Kai is the perfect example of that. And that's not because I voice him. He gets provoked by Yul. Maggie's insulted, and he has a freak out. And, unfortunately he's voted out, not because of some BS where it's Heather just manages to manipulate the crowd. No, here, Yul just has an alliance with the love triangle. 4-3, boom, boom, he's eliminated. Whereas Connor, I feel like Connor, it's kind of abrupt, but at the end of the day, I do think that saying goodbye to a character that you kind of know is going to go early anyway, it's not a deal breaker. I think that losing Connor is fine. I wish it was handled a little better, but it's okay. I'm going to put episode 3 in 7 out of 10. I'll put it just above episode 1, because the lip syncing is better. Not that that's a big deal, but lip syncing is better and all that. I do think that episode 3 is a good setup for the future. I do think that the future is not executed the best, but episode 3 lays the groundwork, and it's pretty fine groundwork. We get a lot of scenes of Hunter, actually. Hunter is very important in this episode, surprisingly important. In an episode where, on the surface, you wouldn't really think he's important, but he kind of is. you get some scenes where Rosa and Lake, it's really set up for Lake's storyline down the road. Connor and Hunter talk about, oh, you gotta choose one of the girls, or whatever. That's a pretty solid scene that helps progress the story. I don't know. I don't really have anything bad to say about episode 3 other than the challenge being like extremely sus. And I'm trying to think what else is in the episode. I really don't think there's much. Yeah, no, losing Connor and Kai, it's very sad, but it is like, yeah, that's the end of the beginning. I feel now it's like we're in the middle of the season. It sets up really good seeds, and unfortunately, and I'm just going to say this now, I do think that the entire middle, episodes 4 to 9, are really iffy. I think the middle of the season is where the season really, really struggles. Next up, we have episode 4, and I don't even think I need to talk about this for too long. Episode 4 is not a great episode. I'm going to put it in 1 out of 10. I think that it's definitely the weakest of the season. There is some behind-the-scenes lore that I'm not going to get into. If you want to know what it is, go look it up. But, yeah, episode 4 is where I feel like the season really loses a grasp on itself. It's a much shorter episode where things just kind of happen. I feel like the whole challenge with the shameful truths feels like a big headcanon challenge, and there's nothing wrong with that, of course. I just said that it's nice to get to know the characters, but I feel here we just learn trivia. It doesn't affect the characters too much. Like, Yule, North Korea, I know it's not that funny of a joke, but like it's a joke answer that doesn't affect how we see Yule or how Yule sees others, right? At least explicitly. Maybe in maybe you can interpret it that way, but at the very least, in the context of the episodes, stuff like that doesn't really reveal much. Then there's the Aiden, well, I guess we don't know it's Aiden yet, but the whole transgender mystery, which I think we can all agree, the fact that they left it up to speculation for the viewers was unambiguously a bad idea, caused a lot of bad theories and bad theorizing. It's just a bad practice all around to leave your transgender characters a mystery. And things just get raunchy. Things get raunchy with Allie, with Rhea. We don't really learn, weirdly enough, in a challenge where we're supposed to learn more about the characters, I feel like we don't really do that. We don't really learn anything too pivotal in how these characters progress in the future. And I think that's a big problem. I think that truths that are like, for example, oh, hey, James is insecure about his Instagram followers. He feels like he's only popular because he's good looking. Like that instantly goes a long way in how we treat James. But little tidbits like, I don't know, Rosa doesn't know her father. I mean, Rosa doesn't know the father of her child. That's okay, that's interesting. Will it play a part in how we think of Rosa? And the answer is no. Nothing, very little, other than the fact that she has a child at a young age. The fact that she's a teenage mother barely affects her character. And it doesn't need to, but I feel like if it's going to be such a deeply rooted issue that's also something that's mentioned a lot, I feel like it does have to play into how she views the world. I know she views the world in a very positive light, but what I'm trying to say is that it's a whole lot of nothing. It's a whole lot of hot air being blown around, but none of it's really entering how we view the characters. And then on top of that, we have the elimination where we lose Maggie, and it's just, look, Maggie was another one of those characters that was very obviously going to be pre-merged, but it was just handled extremely not good. I think that, we have the Maggie Yule showdown, and it's rock, paper, scissors. It's a luck challenge. It doesn't mean anything. There's no skill involved, and Maggie punches Yule, which is fine, but it's I don't know, resorting to violence. I don't know how I feel about that. I guess I get that it's toll drama, but I don't know. Toll drama related work. I don't know. It's just very disappointing. She also just doesn't get a lot to do in the episode itself. So when she's eliminated, it's wow, I guess it was just a checklist. We just had to get rid of Maggie, and they just didn't do a good job at establishing why she needed to go, or putting a lot of focus on her character, right? And I think that's probably the biggest gripe with episode 4, is that it feels like it's another important, just like episode 2, it's another very important, philosophically, it's a very important time to get to know these characters, and it does a really poor job at doing that. And I don't like episode 4. I think that episode 4 is really where the season really starts to lose itself. In episode 5, on the other hand, I think that episode 5 is kind of the third episode in a row where it's a it's a team challenge, but it's more individual. It's based on like your own secrets or doing something embarrassing or whatever. We didn't need 3 in a row, of course, and there's a lot of fan service, kind of like episode 3 and 4. It's very fan servicey, and I think like in episode 3 it's more excusable because it's the first time, but once it's like the 3rd time in a row, it's like, okay, all right, this is getting a bit too much. I do think that episode 5 has a few good moments. We have the moment where Lake calls out Crystal, and of course we have what I would consider the pivotal moment in James's story, where he's like, hey, maybe I should protect Aiden, whatever. Maybe shouldn't, I want to defend him. I want to keep my little boy around. But I do think that episode 5 is really unfocused. We have a lot of scenes with Hunter, Tess, and Allie, and a lot of their moments are off screen. They're talking about how Hunter's acting strange. We don't see him acting strange. We just hear him acting strange. We just hear from Tess, you've been acting strange lately. There's moments where they talk about dating outside the game, but we don't see them talking about dating outside the game. We just hear it from a second-hand account. Now, I'm not saying we need to see literally everything, but I feel like these are obviously very important moments in their development. I feel like we should at least see them on screen, or at least have them not just explained through like a few sentences. We should at the very least like see how it's affecting their own psyche and all that stuff. Anyway, episode 5 is whatever. It's a fine episode. I do think that the moment where the mushroom thing, while the values are a bit weird, where it's like, you can poison someone. I think that's a bit weird. Yeah, I get Yule's a jerk, and in episodes 4 and 5, his jerkiness is kind of over-exaggerated a bit. Kind of goes through the roof. But I do think that it is like, conceptually it's a good moment. It's the turning point for James's character arc. You get rid of the main villain in episode 5. It's pretty solid, actually. But there are just some aspects that I can't appreciate. Because it just feels a little tacked on, right? I'm trying to think about the other stuff that right. The consequences of the actions. Right, we have Crystal confiscate Ria's perfume from Connor. That's good. I like that. But the other stuff where it's like Allie has to burn her consoles and Tess has to burn her pills or something like that. That is I get it. I get what they're trying to do. It's supposed to be like, things are going to be different now. But then we have a scene where Hunter is kind of, the episode tries to frame him like a hero, but it causes 2 sins in the process. One is that it's really creepy that Hunter was hiding Tess's pills. That's really like kind of an invasion of privacy, and it's nowhere near as heroic as the episode tries to make it out to be. And secondly, then what was the point of them burning it? I feel like that was supposed to be a status quo change. Maybe they're not doing so well without their stuff that they need, but like less than like 3 minutes they get it back, and it's like, what was the point? I feel like we were getting the beginning that could have been the beginning of like actually developing these characters, showing how they survive without their necessary vices. Necessary for Tess. I don't think like switches are super necessary, but something that Allie uses to really bond and calm down and stuff. But no, they get it back like immediately. It's like, what was the point? What was the point? These pretty surface level boring characters finally got a challenge, and immediately it's like, nope, they're not doing that. We're going back to the normal way, which is the boring way. I don't know. I want to put episode 5 above episode 2. I do think that, again, the seeds for the future, it does a good job at planting seeds for the future. It's just that the future it's kind of meh. And yeah, I mean, the downfall of Yule is obviously a very iconic moment of the season, but I just wish that someone replaced him in a couple of episodes, because there are just a few episodes where there's no villain, and that just, it causes a weird vacuum. It causes a weird glitch in the system where there's no antagonist, basically. It's just, things are just happening because it's a game show, and there's no one who's really instigating the drama. Next up, we have episode 6, and I think episode 6 is not that bad. I think episode 6 is fine, but it's a fine episode if you are really invested in Jaden or Lake. Obviously, there's very cute Jaden moments where they're in the tent. They talk about the teddy bear. They talk about Yule and all that stuff. And then for Lake, we get the moments where she really rebels against her father and bonds with Crystal. And I think that is, like, if you like those 3 characters, that's amazing. especially because those 3 are probably the most prominent characters in the series so far. But what about the other 5? The other 5 don't get a lot. Hunter is finally bonding with someone that's not Allie or Tess, with Lake, but it's like for like a minute. And Lake, obviously she has to go for the sake of progressing her story with Crystal. But it's like, man, come on, we were finally getting some good Hunter content, and it was taken away immediately. Rosa and Rhea get pretty much nothing this episode. I feel like they should have gotten, especially with how important they are later on, they should have gotten like a few more seeds planted for the future, just a bit more setup. Maybe just a bonding moment, especially because this is where the idol is found, right? And that is like super, super important for how we perceive them going forward. And it's just like Rhea is super jealous at Rosa, or jealous of Lake because Rosa didn't trust her. Rosa didn't trust Rhea to talk about the idol. And it's like, I don't know, it's so glossed over in these episodes. It's so like in the background, despite being the finale antagonist and the big bad of the season, the big turning point. And it's so underdeveloped, I feel. And then on top of that, Allie and Tess, they do get a few moments, but I feel like we're kind of watching a clip show of Tess and Allie. Like, we're seeing the beginning of these moments in what should have been like big moments episode 6. We're seeing like the beginning. We don't see the payoff, we don't see the end. There's a moment where they're in the cave and she's crying, and it immediately cuts away. And it's like, no, that's the part we should have focused on. Like, what are they talking about? It's a very sensitive moment for these characters. Maybe we get to know a bit of Tess's experiences or troubles. Maybe Allie comforts her with kind words. But no, that's when we cut away. What? That's the part we need to see. And yeah, no, I think episode 6, it's a filler episode. There's no elimination, but I think that it only really progresses 3 characters, and that's fine. But when you have 5 other characters who are very underdeveloped, you're already pushing the 3 most popular characters, whereas the other 5 are kind of left in the dust. I mean, okay, Allie and Tess aren't bad, but it's like we don't really learn much about Allie, and the moments that are really dramatic, I feel like they cut away far too early. I'm gonna put episode 6 4 out of 10. It's fine, I guess. But for a filler episode, it doesn't do a good job. If you want a good filler episode, episode 3 of DC1, and I know someone is eliminated. I know, spoilers, but Drew's eliminated. But like, he's a silent character. He was always gonna be some. I might offend the Drew army here, but it was designed to be a pre-merge boot, so effectively, and he has a very standalone story. So he was designed to be an early boot, and because of that, it's essentially a filler episode where you get to know some of the characters more, you get to learn their phobias. That's a really good filler episode. It's like 9 or even 10 out of 10 filler episode. I feel like episode 6 very much pales in comparison to that. So yeah, episode 7, okay. Episode 7, I want to make a statement here. This is probably my biggest hot take of the series. Episode 7 is like the second worst episode of the whole series. It's not as bad as episode 4, but it's still 2 out of 10. And let me explain why. I do think that, considering the fact that the love triangle, there was so much building up for it. Of course, you're hyping up the fact that Hunter has to choose one of the girls. That was like the agenda for like the beginning of the season. It's like he's gonna choose one of the girls. Who's it gonna be? And of course, it's total drama, and it's a love triangle. Total drama and love triangles are very synonymous. Of course, we have the Courtney Gwen Duncan thing. People have been fighting about that for the last like 10 years, basically. No, more, like 13, 14 years at this point. So what are we going to do with this love triangle? Are we going to do it better than Total Drama? Are we going to satirize the tropes and the cliches that everyone's been doing? Are we going to do it differently? Is there like a message we're trying to say? And my main takeaway is that no, we're just going to do... No, we're not going to do what Total Drama did. We're going to do it worse. We don't have anything to say. All the moments where it's like super important for their characters, we're gonna underdevelop them. We're gonna give Hunter, Tess, and Allie, okay, maybe not Tess. We're gonna give Hunter and Allie like super surface level, basic, generic dialogue, and their personalities are only gonna show like one in every like 10% of the time. And I think the antithesis to that is that episode 7 we lose Tess, and I don't think there's anything wrong with Tess's arc. I think that Tess's story is really good. But I think that in the context of the episode, it's like very underwhelming because it's only in the last 3 minutes. It's kind of like Maggie, where Maggie just kind of leaves in episode 4. Tess is not important to the episode other than the last like 3 minutes. Yeah, there's a scene in the middle with Allie's grandpa, but that's about it. Right, in this 20-minute episode, The love triangle is barely a part of it, and this should be a very important episode for them. They lose a member of the love triangle, but it's so glossed over, and there's really no reason why. I feel like in any given episode, the character gets eliminated. They don't need to be the most important character, but you need to at least give them enough spotlight that it doesn't feel anticlimactic. And I feel like for Maggie and for Tess and for Allie later on, and then for Hunter later on even, they all are just kind of like, oh yeah, they're here and now they're gone. On top of that, it just feels like these characters, episode 7 is like, these characters are like action figures. They're very like, things just happen to them because we need it to fulfill the boot order, right? Things just kind of happen. This is a merge episode, and we don't really get any new interactions. Like, we do get Rosa, Rhea, and Lake talking to James and Aiden about the votes, but it's like, they're talking about the votes. And it's not like Rosa's interacting with Aiden or anything like that. They're just talking about James and Aiden as like a collective. Does that make sense? Like Rosa's not directly talking to James or directly talking to Aiden. She's just talking on behalf of her group, to the behalf of the Jaden duo, I guess. Does that make sense? And on top of that, the strategy is just not great. Not in Test Part. Test Part's fine. I'm talking about Hunter, where it's like he gets immunity, and so in this important merge vote, what does he do? He just plays video games all day. It's like, what? And I'm gonna have to advertise a bit here, but like in my vision, it would be that Hunter, Allie, and I guess just Hunter and Allie, they go to James and Aiden. They're like, hey, vote for Rosa, right? And then Rosa, Rhea, and Lake are like, hey, vote for Tess. So like now there's a conflict. Now James and Aiden have to choose, and now James is like, oh man, no matter what, one side's gonna be mad at us. We're in the middle now. What do we do? I mean, it's great that we're in the middle, but we're gonna piss someone off. Like, but no, it's just there's no character choice here. That's what I do love about DC1, is that it feels like some of these characters are making very ethical decisions, very, very like costly situations where there are consequences to their actions. But they're like, you know what? I'm the author of my own fate. This is how I want to go. It doesn't feel like that way for anyone in episode 7. And the challenge is nice. The challenge is great. I also don't like how this episode establishes the fact that Hunter's a big threat and he wins through sheer luck. I feel like it's very, very easy to fix. Just make Hunter beat Lake. Like, not through luck, just through skill. But no, he just wins through luck. And maybe if the episodes wanted to say something about that, be like, hey, Hunter, you only win through luck. That would be cool. But no, it's never mentioned. He just wins because he's lucky. And that's not compelling. That doesn't make him a challenge beast. That just makes him lucky. And like, if that was the point, if it was going to be like an argument where Hunter's like, I'm a challenge beast, I'm the greatest, and James is like, no, Hunter, you only win because you are lucky, then that'd be cool. But we don't get that. I don't like episode 7, honestly. I think episode 7 has the worst. Well, okay, episode 4 is worse, but like episode 7 has a lot of writing fallacies that I'm not a big fan of. So yeah, I guess the equivalent would be like if we have the Gwen, Courtney, and Duncan, and the episode where Gwen goes home, she barely gets anything to do. Like, she gets barely anything to do, and it's just, she's only relevant to the last, like, 2-3 minutes where she needs to be eliminated, and that's it. It just feels underwhelming. It feels like we're not really progressing. It just feels like, hey guys, because we gave the love triangle such a low amount of screen time, just don't take them too seriously, alright? We didn't give them any fanfare in an episode where they lose one of their members, so just heads up, they're not going to be important. And I think that might be why after episode 7, I kind of like, I didn't really take them seriously at all. After episode like 7, I just was like, okay, you know what? I'm just here for the ride with the love triangle. I'm not here to overanalyze or anything. Let's take it cool. All right, let's take a backseat. Now, immediately after one of my least favorite episodes, we're gonna go to probably my favorite episode of the season, episode 8. You can tell they had so much fun with this episode. There's so many horror movie references. And like, yeah, sure, it's very similar to a Total Drama Challenge, but A, no one wins. A, no one wins except for the Night Butcher. B, the Night Butcher is a previous contestant. That's really cool. C, there's a lot of references to like horror movies. It's a lot of fun. And D, it's just a different atmosphere to really shift from very mundane, embarrassing challenges and then survive in the woods, then obstacle course it's a nice change of scenery is what I'm trying to say. It's very nice, and I feel like this is like the perfect amount of interactions I want between each plotline. I feel like episode 7 is very lopsided. You get a lot of scenes of the three girls alliance, and then just a scene of Aiden and Lake, and then a tiny scene with Allie and Tess. This is like the perfect amount of what I would look for, where it feels pretty darn balanced. All three groups, Jaden, Hunt Allie, and the three girls, they get like an even amount of screen time. Now, I wish there was some cross-group interactions, like maybe Rosa talks to James, or maybe Hunter talks to Rhea, but like, it's perfect. I wish that episode 6 was this balanced. The challenge is fun. And yeah, sure, there's not a lot being talked about. There's not a lot of character progression other than the three girls again, but I think that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just a fun episode. And there's, to top it all off, there's a massive shock. Lake goes home. Everyone was like, oh, Lake's the protagonist. She's going to make Final 2. No, she doesn't. She gets 8th place. She's eliminated through the through the votes. And yeah, James is making a big decision here. He's going for... Now, again, I wish we got like a confessional where James talks about how big of a decision it is and how it's going to affect the game going forward. But I mean, like, yeah, it's a big move to get rid of Lake this early when she's predicted to be a very long runner, I guess. That being said, I think that another issue I have is just that while the challenge and the camp content is fun, I do think that the votes kind of lose me a bit here. For one, we have Carol kind of conveniently giving Hunter and Allie immunity. I don't like that. Again, feels very, very convenient. I don't like convenient writing. But then to top it all off, Aiden is kind of has to be written like an idiot here, because obviously he's not going to vote for Lake, but he also, he's caught in the middle. Of course, Lake goes home because Aiden didn't want to tie the votes or anything like that. And like, that's fine, but I wish it was referenced more in his character. Be like, you know what? I'm not voting for Lake. I'm not voting for James. I'm just voting someone else, because that's what I want. All right, I don't want either of these people going home, so I'm gonna throw my vote away. Which is like fine, I guess that would have helped a bit. And then on top of that, Carol, it's 3 votes James, 3 votes Lake. Carol has the deciding vote really, and she votes for Lake. But then immediately she's like, I'm gonna troll James. James and Aiden, they're going down. And it's like, then why didn't you vote for James? I don't know, the voting kind of loses me in this episode. But, if I'm comparing it to the rest of the season, the voting for the entire season is kind of like iffy anyway. But yeah, no, episode 8 it's a fun episode. It's a good time. There's a lot of content, even though they're not really cross-bonding. At the very least, it's a very balanced amount for the groups that you'd come to expect are going to interact. It's very fun. In episode 9, this is probably what's going to lose me a lot of credibility here. I don't hate episode 9. In fact, I do love episode 9. Okay, maybe love's a strong word. I like episode 9. And I think my reasoning is that, as I said, by the time we hit episode 7, I kind of checked out. I'm just kind of like, okay, let's just enjoy the ride. Episode 9, there are moments where James and Aiden are kind of the designated heroes of the episode, and they kind of are rude to Carol, is what I'm trying to say. Like, the episode's trying to frame them as heroic, but their actions are not very heroic, I guess, to Carol. And I think if you're a Carol fan, you're going to be annoyed that these are the heroes of the season, and yet, they treat what is that? Apparently, a lot of junk to review. They're designated heroes, is what I'm trying to say. And maybe it doesn't feel earned for some people, especially because James, at this point in the season, hasn't gotten a lot of screen time in the last 2 episodes. Episode 7 and 8, if you want James content, you're not going to get him in episode 7 or 8. You're going to get, like, very, very few, like, comic relief James content. On top of that, Carol, at the end of episode 8, kind of hyped up to be a big villain. I never really thought she was ever going to be a big villain. In my head, I was like, okay, she'd be lucky to last, like, 2 episodes. Right? I feel like episode 8 really set the stage for, like, okay, Rhea will be a very sympathetic sort of villain who's not doing it because she's evil, but because, like, she wants to win, and she feels a bit guilty, because that's how episode 8 was framing her. We're gonna get to that in a moment. But what I'm trying to say is that I never was on the Carol train. I was always expecting her to be just kind of like, maybe 1 or 2 more episodes to her name. And I actually don't mind the fact that she was medevac. Yeah, medevacs can always feel cheap in these kinds of shows, but it saves having an extra episode just for Carol to be eliminated. On top of that, I do think that Carol's plan was extremely disappointing. I think that in episode 8, where she's like, I'm going to split those boys up, I'm getting my revenge, or whatever, only to have Carol's revenge plan be not even specific to Aiden or James' weaknesses. Maybe it could be like, oh, James, we don't know you. You know, you're just a pretty face, that's all you are. Or Aiden, you're so gullible, you're so wishy-washy, you don't know what you think about this guy, maybe he's using you. You know, just good old-fashioned doubts, planting the seeds of deception and manipulation. No, it's a spider. It's like, I don't know how I feel about that, honestly, I really don't. Especially when you have, like, these very big weak points for these two boys, and use a spider that, you know, a spider could be used for anyone. It's not even specific to them, and it's like, what are you gonna do? They're not gonna vote each other out, you're just gonna lose them the challenge. They're not gonna, like, doubt each other. It's like, it's a spider. I don't know. Now, I do like the scene where Carol and Rhea are talking. I think that's a nice come to the dark side kind of conversation. But when the person who's saying come to the dark side's plan is a spider, it's like, okay, it's kind of weak. I don't have a problem with it. I just have the problem with the fact that you're supposed to take this like super seriously. Carol is like this big mastermind, and she just uses a spider. There's a scene in Adventure Camp where Gret and Fiore, Ashley finds out their secret. So Gret and Fiore, they go into the woods, they get guns, and then they shoot her. They knock her unconscious, and then she gets medevac. It's kind of like that. It's very like, I don't have a problem with using physical means to win in this game, like you with the mushroom, for example. But when it's like you're supposed to take this super seriously as like this big mastermind moment, and you know you're hyping Carol up, it's like, I don't know, it falls really flat, especially because these two boys, they have a lot of weak spots that are gonna get exploited later on. To not even like have that happen is like, I don't know, it feels like missed potential. Now I'm saying all this bad stuff about episode 9. I do actually like episode 9. I'm gonna put it up here. I'm gonna put it 6 out of 10. Again, nice change of scenery. It's the nice snowy. I just realized I haven't barely talked about the Oliver stuff, but that's so, the Oliver stuff is so inconsequential. It's just your generic anime protagonist arc. Oh, Crystal, you're a good person, and then he leaves, and then, you know, finds Connor. It's like, you know, maybe Crystal is a good person or whatever. I don't even remember how it went. I don't know. It's just so inconsequential to the actual episodes. Especially because Oliver just doesn't really have too many interesting things to say. You know, if it was like commentary on You're Not Like Your Father or anything like that, then yeah, that'd be good. And they kind of do that, but it's very like, again, kind of surface level. Anyway, episode 9. I do like this episode. I really do like episode 9. I think the challenge is fun. I think like Hunter, yeah, it's like, it's kind of cheesy. This is probably among the best Hunter Ellie moments we get, but that's because there's barely any Hunter Ellie like dedicated episodes where they actually bond more than surface level stuff. Yeah, I think Hunter winning the challenge is kind of, but it's like at that point it's like, okay, I get it. I get what we're trying to do. It doesn't matter. We're trying to hype him up as this immunity beast. It's totally fine. There is some conflict with the Hunter Ellie kiss thing, and I think that is interesting that they are introducing conflict. That's good. But it's so late in the season, and it's like 2 of the girls are already gone. It's like you're giving Ellie agency in the narrative the second she leaves. It's like, that's kind of weird. I wish we gave Ellie agency while she was still in the game. I'm trying to think about what else there's to talk about this episode. I don't know. I complain about it, but it's like, at this point, I'm just checked out. Episode 7 already kind of soured me, and it does feel like a lot of values are just very confused. Also, Rosa gets like 0 screen time. She gets a lot of screen time in episode 8, and a lot in episode 10, and then like pretty much nothing in episode 9. No, yeah, I don't really have, like, I feel like some people comment their thoughts in episode 9, and I don't have any, because I don't remember it, or B, I don't care, because it's like, yeah, whatever. Episode 10 is a good episode. I'm gonna say this outright. Episode 10 is underrated. There are stupid moments, but at this point, again, I'm checked out. I'm just here for the ride. I'm just here to have fun. And there are writing flaws, but I get it. We have to reach a point. We're kind of doing a bit of damage control because we didn't do enough development in the previous episodes, but that's okay. We're just getting from point A to point B, and I'm having a decent time with it. I want to put it in 7 out of 10. I'm going to lose a bit of credibility here, but I'm going to put it here. I think the challenge is one of the most fun. It's the Mario Kart, like, shoot the balloons thing, and I think that's pretty great. We get really, really, really good moments with Hunter and Rosa, like, underrated. These two characters have been kind of glossed over the whole season thus far, and I think this this one episode, episode 10, is enough to raise both of them like a whole tier higher, maybe even 2 tiers higher. And I think that's amazing. It's very late in the game, but better late than never. I like episode 10. I love the challenge. There's some dumb moments. Rosa goes to Hunter. Not that Rosa going to Hunter is the bad thing. I know that's part of her character. She's a feeler. She's more emotional. She feels bad for Hunter. I get it. But she's telling him stuff he should already know about. Hunter should already know about the Alliance at this point. They've targeted Allie and Tess at this point. It should be very obvious that there's a foursome going on of James, Aiden, Rosa, Rhea. That should be extremely obvious. And then on top of that, the Alliance is mad at Rosa. And it's like, why you're mad at Rosa for going to Hunter, telling him stuff he should already know about. You're mad at her for telling stuff that he should already know about. It's like, what? But I get it. We're getting from point A to point B. I'm not too like, yeah, okay, whatever. Character. And also, James popping the balloons is really silly, really stupid, but like at this point, James is kind of impulsive, so it's like, okay, fits his character. I get it. James is kind of an impulsive guy. Yeah, everyone has silly moments, and I would rather it be like DC1, where the characters, you feel like they have common sense, they have basic common sense, they have deduction skills, you know, they're not idiots. I'm not saying they're all smart, but at least they have basic common sense. I wish we got that. We didn't get that, but that's okay, because at this point, I've conditioned myself to think in equilibrium, and it's okay. I do think that Rosa being eliminated is very sad. This is the beginning of the I was acting Rosa, which is conceptually, it's a pretty interesting moment. I don't think it's nearly as earned, but it's fine. It's fine. I understand what they were going for, and it's completely fine, in my opinion. In episode 10, in episode 11, some problems, but in episode 10 it's fine. And then, it's revealed that she stole the idol, which I think is a little too convenient. I don't like it in these shows when the idol's stolen, because I feel like it's so cliche, especially because, and you know, this isn't Survivor, of course, but like in the show, you can't do that. A, you can't do that. B, it's like, it expires at the final 5, but you know, it's a cartoon show. It just feels that, well, now that we know Rhea has the idol, she's basically guaranteed final 3. And the stealing idol thing is very cliche, but at the end of the day, I do think that this episode is very character driven, and I think that's a really good thing. Again, we kind of don't get a whole lot of James and Aiden, but like, it's not to the point of Rosa in episode 9, where episode 9 Rosa doesn't exist. Like, I do think that we get like this final 5. I wish we got this amount of screen time from the final 5 for the whole like merge of the season. That would have been great. I don't hate episode 10. I think episode 10 is fine. Episode 11, on the other hand, it's a bit much to have Rhea, you know, I can see the vision where it's like, now she's cutthroat, but she went a little too cutthroat for my liking. We get the trans reveal payoff, which again should not have been a big mystery. I think it's good to have a trans representation, but to have it be like this whole theorizing, speculating thing's not a good idea. We get the whole, I guess the challenge is kind of funny. We get the, you know, Aiden and James are finally, you know, things are maybe not the greatest in the relationship. I wish that Carol did this in episode 9, but, you know, it happened in episode 11. Better late than never. Very late in the season. Hunter doesn't actually have a whole lot to do in this episode, to be honest, even though this is his elimination. It goes back to that, but at that point, it's like, I get it. He's a big immunity threat. We got to get rid of him. That's not the biggest deal breaker. I do think that Rhea having the idol, I mean, I don't know. I feel like you could kind of tell what's going on, because the trailer had Rhea be like, I have the idol, and then obviously in the thumbnail, Rhea has the idol. I feel like if you're going for suspense, this episode doesn't have it, but at the same time, it's kind of like a, you know, this is always going to happen moment. It's kind of like, yeah, dramatic irony. We, the viewers, know Rhea has the idol, the other characters don't. And, like, obviously, they're going to go for the big threat. Who even wanted, did no one want immunity this episode? I think no one wanted immunity in this episode. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. I think that the final 5 with Rosa is, like, is fine. But then you lose her, and now the final 4 is a lot weaker. It doesn't help that these are 4 of the most controversial characters of the season. That doesn't help either. But for what it's worth, I think episode 11 is okay. Where would I put it? Would I put it above? I'm going to put it above episode 9. I think it's fine for what it is. Now, we're at the end. Alright, we're almost at the end. And I'm going to be honest, the finale, I don't really have much to say. I like the finale. I think that The season had problems. The whole season, there were big problems with setup and payoff and deserved moments and character bonding and cross bonding interactions and the voting stuff. And I think that episode 12, weirdly enough, throws it all away. I don't know how, but it does a really good job at being like, all right, this is the finale. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with the finale. I'm going to be completely honest. I think the finale is extremely competently written. And by the virtue of not having to set anything up anymore, it's the conclusion, it's the big payoff. I think it's pretty good. I'm gonna put both of them because they're both basically the same episode. I'm gonna put them here. I'd say weaker than episode 8. No, you know what? No, I'm gonna put it as the best episode. The best episode of the season is the finale. And it's so weird how Total Drama, usually the finale is one of the worst episodes, but because it's anticlimactic, because it feels like arcs aren't realized, it feels like some character, because there's 2 winners sometimes in Total Drama, things fall apart. But for Disventure Camp Season 2, I do think that the finale, episodes 12 and 13, 12 more than 13, really good, because it's the end. Now, I do wish that the middle stuff, or the beginning and the middle, both contributed more to the finale. But I think that for what it's worth, we do end in a way that's not awful. 8 out of 10. I think that if you watch the finale, you might think that, oh wow, the finale is really good, let's watch the rest of the season. You might be disappointed by the rest of the season, but at the very least, the finale kind of slaps. Now why do I think that? I think that at this point, it's just the characters, Rhea gets her karma, basically. She loses the season. Connor calls her out. Rosa forgives her, calls her out a bit. James and Aiden, they have their moments in the spotlight. I do think that after episode 5, there's this pretty big gap where they're not doing a whole lot. Episode 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they're not doing a whole lot. Episode 11, and then the finale is where gears are finally turning again. They're finally, somewhat interesting again. The dynamics on their relationship, we don't know a whole lot about them as individuals, but at the very least, the payoff to their dynamic as a couple is finalized. Now, it's not 9 out of 10, it's not 10 out of 10, but it's fine. It's pretty good. I'm trying to think, I don't really have a lot to say about this finale. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if we agree with this, but yeah, the finale is really good. They have a talent. Total Drama can't have good finales, but Disventure Camp apparently can. I just wish that the rest of the season was better. So here's my tier list. I'm trying to look, see if there are any hiccups in the tier list. I don't think there is. Yeah, I don't think there's any hiccups on the tier list. There's no 3 out of 10 episode. Yeah, so this is my tier list, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. There's a lot of rambling. There was a lot of, unfocusedness from me, but at the end of the day, here's what I think of the episodes. I hope you enjoy. If I were to do this again with DC1, I'd be a lot more positive with some of the episodes, and I assure you that as someone who is proofreading the season, adding a few lines here and there, I think that episode 1 is quite the banger. And hey, if there is if there is a season 3, did I say season 1 is a banger, and if there is a season 3, oh boy, you guys aren't ready. It's gonna be one hell of a ride. So that's all for now. I'm the voice of Kai, yeah. And see you guys next time.